Hello and welcome to today's episode. I'm really glad you're here, because we're going to talk about a small word that can have a huge impact on your life. That word is no. Many English learners focus on how to say yes, how to agree politely, how to be friendly and positive. But today, we'll explore the other side, how and why to say no. Saying no is not about being rude or negative. In fact, it can be one of the healthiest, most respectful, and most powerful things you can do for yourself and for others. Let's start with a simple question. Why is it so hard to say no? For many people, saying no feels uncomfortable. We worry that others will think we are selfish, lazy, or unfriendly. We don't want to disappoint people. We want to be liked. This is very natural. Humans are social beings, and we care about our relationships. But when we always say yes, even when we don't want to, we often create bigger problems for ourselves. Imagine this situation. A colleague asks you to help with a project, but you already have too much work. You feel tired and stressed, but you still say, "Sure, no problem." At that moment, it feels easier to say yes. You avoid an awkward conversation. But later, you may feel overwhelmed, frustrated, and maybe even angry, not at your colleague, but at yourself. This is the first important idea of today's episode. Every time you say yes to something you don't really want, you are saying no to something else: your time, your energy, your rest, or your own priorities. Time and energy are limited resources. We all have only 24 hours in a day. When we fill those hours with tasks we don't truly choose, we lose the chance to spend them on things that matter to us: learning, resting, being with family, or working on personal goals. Saying no helps you protect your time. It is like setting a boundary around what is important to you. A boundary is a clear line that shows what you are comfortable with and what you are not. Without boundaries, people may ask more and more from you, not because they are bad, but because they simply don't know your limits. Many English learners ask me how to say no politely. They are afraid that the word no sounds too direct or too strong. But English actually offers many soft and respectful ways to refuse a request. For example, instead of saying just no, you can say, "I'm sorry, I can't help with that right now. I'd love to, but I already have other commitments. Thanks for thinking of me, but I'll have to pass this time." These phrases show respect and appreciation, while still being clear. And clarity is very important. If your message is not clear, people may misunderstand and continue to ask you again and again. Let's talk about another reason why saying no can change your life. It helps you build self-respect. When you always agree with others, even when you disagree inside, you send a message to yourself that your needs are less important. Over time, this can lower your confidence. You may start to feel that your opinions and your time don't really matter. But when you say no to something that is not right for you, you show yourself that your needs are valid. You prove to yourself that you are allowed to make choices. This small act can slowly build stronger self-esteem and a clearer sense of identity. Of course, saying no does not mean rejecting everything. It is not about becoming cold or unhelpful. It is about choosing carefully when to say yes and when to say no. Think of it like a filter. You let in what is good and useful, and you keep out what is harmful or unnecessary. There is also a surprising effect on your relationships. Many people think that saying no will damage their relationships, but often the opposite is true. Honest communication builds trust. When people know that your yes is real and not forced, they value it more. Imagine you have a friend who always says yes to meeting, helping, and joining every activity. At first, this seems great. But later, you might notice that they cancel plans at the last minute, arrive late, or seem tired and unhappy. You may start to feel that you cannot fully rely on their yes. Now imagine another friend who sometimes says no, but when they say yes, they are fully present, focused, and happy to be there. Which friend would you trust more? Probably the second one. Their yes feels more honest and meaningful. So, by saying no when necessary, you make your yes stronger and more valuable. Let's look at a few common situations where people struggle to say no, and how you can handle them in English. The first situation is at work. A manager or colleague asks you to take on extra tasks. If you are already busy, you might say, "I'd like to help, but my schedule is full this week. Could we look at this again next week?" This response shows willingness but also sets a limit. It opens the door for a future solution without promising something you cannot deliver. The second situation is with friends or family. They invite you to events or ask for favors. You might feel guilty saying no because these people are close to you. But honesty is still important. You could say, "I really appreciate the invitation, but I need some time to rest this weekend." This sentence is polite and clear. You don't need to give a long explanation or invent a story. Simple and honest is often the best choice. The third situation is when someone asks for something that goes against your values or makes you uncomfortable. In these moments, saying no is not just helpful, it is necessary. You might say, "I'm not comfortable with that, so I'm going to say no." This kind of response is direct, but it is also respectful. You are not attacking the other person, you are simply protecting your own boundaries. Another important skill is learning to pause before answering. Many people say yes automatically because they feel pressure to respond immediately. But you are allowed to take time. You can say, "Let me think about it and get back to you." This short sentence gives you space to consider your real feelings and your schedule. It can prevent many situations where you regret saying yes too quickly. Now let's talk about the emotional side of saying no. Even when you know it is the right decision, you may still feel guilty. This is normal. Guilt often comes from the belief that we must always make others happy. But it is impossible to please everyone all the time. Trying to do so usually leads to stress and burnout. Burnout is a state of physical and emotional exhaustion caused by too much stress and too many responsibilities. People who never say no are at a higher risk of burnout because they keep adding tasks without giving themselves enough time to rest and recover. By saying no, you create space in your life. Space to breathe, to think, to relax, and to focus on what truly matters. This space is not empty or useless. It is necessary for creativity, learning, and mental health. There is also a cultural aspect to saying no. In some cultures, direct refusal is considered impolite, and people prefer to be more indirect. English-speaking cultures can also vary. In business environments, especially in countries like the United States, Canada, or the United Kingdom, people often appreciate clear and honest communication. Being polite is important, but being clear is equally valued. As an English learner, it is useful to practice different levels of directness. You can start with softer phrases if you feel uncomfortable, and slowly become more direct as you gain confidence. Language is not only about grammar and vocabulary, it is also about expressing your needs and your personality. Let's practice a few more useful phrases you can use to say no politely. "I'm afraid I won't be able to." "That doesn't work for me right now." "I'll have to decline, but thank you for asking." "I'm focusing on other priorities at the moment." By learning and practicing these expressions, you give yourself practical tools. When the moment comes, you won't feel lost for words, and this makes it much easier to stay calm and confident. Another powerful idea is that saying no helps you focus on your long-term goals. If you say yes to every small request, you may never have time or energy for the big things you dream about: learning a new skill, changing your career, writing a book, or simply improving your English. Successful people often talk about the importance of saying no. They understand that focus is not only about choosing what to do, but also about choosing what not to do. Every no is a decision to protect your future. Let's imagine you want to improve your English from B1 to B2 level. This requires regular practice listening, reading, speaking, and studying. But if you spend your evenings always helping others, attending every social event, or working extra hours, you may never find the time to practice. In this case, saying no to some invitations is actually saying yes to your personal growth. It is also important to remember that other people are responsible for their own feelings. You are responsible for being polite and honest, but you are not responsible for controlling how others react. Some people may feel disappointed when you say no, and that is okay. Disappointment is a normal human emotion. It does not mean you did something wrong. Over time, as you practice saying no, it becomes easier. At first, your voice may shake, and you may repeat your explanation many times. But with experience, you will learn that most conversations end more peacefully than you expected. People often accept your answer and move on. You might even notice a positive change in how others treat you. When you show that your time and energy are valuable, others are more likely to respect them. They may think more carefully before asking for favors, and they may appreciate your help more when you do offer it. Let's briefly summarize the key ideas from today's episode. Saying no is difficult because we fear rejection and conflict. However, always saying yes can lead to stress, burnout, and a loss of personal time. Saying no helps you set boundaries, protect your energy, and build self-respect. It also makes your yes more meaningful and can improve your relationships through honest communication. You can say no politely in English by using soft phrases, showing appreciation, and being clear. You can also take time to think before answering, and you should remember that you are not responsible for managing everyone's emotions. Before we finish, I'd like to leave you with a small challenge. This week, try to notice how often you say yes automatically. The next time someone asks you for something, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, do I really want to do this? Do I have the time and energy? If the answer is no, practice using one of the polite phrases we discussed today. You don't need to start with big, difficult situations. Even small moments are good practice. For example, if someone asks you to join an activity you are not interested in, you can try saying, "Thanks, but I'm going to skip this one." Each time you do this, you build confidence and learn that the world does not end when you say no. Learning to say no is not about closing doors. It is about choosing the right doors to open. It is about creating a life that reflects your true priorities and values, rather than a life controlled by constant obligations and pressure. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope this episode not only helped you practice your English listening skills but also gave you something meaningful to think about in your daily life. Remember, your time and energy are precious. Using the word no wisely can protect them and help you build a more balanced, focused, and satisfying life. I'll see you in the next episode.